Welcome into the Locked On Knicks podcast. Gavin, Schall, Alex Wolfe. After a slow start, the New York Knicks rebound to wrap up their West Coast road trip in sterling fashion, a 123-107 victory over the Portland Trail Blazers. We'll tell you about Deuce McBride's career night and so much more right now on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, and today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate Basketball GM. Ever dreamed of becoming an NBA GM and managing your basketball franchise? Then this game is definitely for you. To download the game, just visit ultimatebasketballgm.com or look it up on the app stores. Our listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code LOCKEDON, all caps, in the game. All right, guys, this is Locked On Knicks, and we want to thank you for making it your first listen today and every day, because we are now available on all platforms, and that includes on YouTube. So if you haven't gone and checked us out on YouTube and subscribed, that's a key part of it. You got to subscribe. You got to hit that notifications bell so you never, ever miss an episode. But who do you not want to miss? That's myself. I'm Gavin Schall, your favorite play-by-play broadcaster's favorite play-by-play broadcaster. He is Alex Wolfe, editor-in-chief of the Strickland, the greatest Knicks website in the whole wide world. And I'm sure the Strickland is probably going to have some fantastic coverage of what was a super fun game, Alex. The Knicks, just to get our 30-second recap in, they were down 10-0. They didn't score a point through the first 4 minutes. Then they were down 15-3, then 21-6. And then kind of slowly but surely chipped away. Julius Randle started making better decisions. Immanuel Quickley started hitting some shots. Honestly, RJ Barrett he scored their first 5 points. He was pacing them on both ends of the floor. And then the third quarter, the Knicks just ended this game despite Damian Lillard being volcanic for the entirety of it. They scored 42 points in the third, 15-21 from the field, 5 for 8 from three-point range. IQ had 14 points to lead the way. And then the Fortress honestly almost felt like an all-star game with the way the Knicks were turning defense into offense. Alex, it went from a Deuce show, for lack of a better term, to a Deuce show in a positive way later in the game.
Yeah, hey, that was a pretty good turn of phrase right
Thank
there.
Thank you. Yeah, I come up with my best stuff at 1 a.m.
You and me both, I guess. Yeah, so I thought it was just like Deuce is the story out of this game. This felt almost like, and maybe this is hyperbole, maybe this is it being 1 a.m. and me being a prisoner of the moment here, but this feels a little bit like when Immanuel Quickley just sort of forced himself into the conversation for minutes earlier this season, where it's just like, if this guy could play like this, how can you justify not finding at least a few minutes a game for him? And whether that means, you cut RJ down to about where he was in this game, or Grimes plays a little less, which he did in this game. Like, Deuce wound up playing 24.5 minutes. Maybe that's not what he does every night, but 10 to 12 minutes of this guy with the defense that he plays is just dynamite. And I think that the Knicks might have discovered well, they've been playing this lineup, but like the way that it clicked today was just insane. The Deuce, Quickley, and Hart combination was just so good. It was so fun to watch. Like, they were absolute menaces on defense. I mean, I just cannot remember the last time that there's been like a Knicks like front three like that has that active of hands, that's causing that much trouble on the perimeter, which then just sparked everything that they were doing. Whether it was Julius in there, whether it was Obi in there, they were sparking this like awesome run and gun offense by just like generating steals and, getting after every board and playing transition defense. And I mean, it's just crazy. Like, you had Deuce with a steal and 2 blocks. You had Hart with 3 steals. You had Quickley with a steal of his own, but also 10 boards for Immanuel Quickley and 9 boards for Josh Hart. I mean, the hustle was off the charts. It was like if you took their ratings on NBA 2K and all the hustle stats, jacked them up, and then applied like a bonus to them, and somehow let them be like over 100. That third quarter and then parts of the fourth quarter were just so electric with those guys on the floor, and I loved every second of it. Like, it was the real difference maker of the game. But Deuce, like, specifically, it's exactly what we've been talking about. Like, I feel like we just literally said this in the last show, like what, or maybe it was 2 shows ago, but whatever. Like when he's making shots, he instantly becomes a like plus player because the defense is always going to be there. And the thing that's needed to come around for him is the shot. And that's sort of similar to Quickly as well, where like that was one of the last hurdles for Quickly, even like earlier this year, was the shot wasn't really falling, but he was clearly impacting the game well. And then the shot started falling, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, you can't keep this guy off the court because he's too good. And I feel like we're sort of seeing that happen in real time with Deuce. Granted, he has to find some more consistency in that, but he's right on the precipice. And this game was easily the best of his career, and just such a joy to watch and see him sort of break out like this.
Yeah, it almost felt like he monstered Quentin Grimes to me, because Grimes, I'm surprised I'm getting negative so early in this podcast. I didn't think I was going to do that coming in, but Grimes played 20 minutes, was just 1 for 3 from the field, hit 1 3, had 4 points, 4 fouls, 3 turnovers, was a minus 11 for the New York Knicks. The only Knick outside of Mitchell Robinson who's a minus 4. That was a net rating negative on the night. And it felt like Deuce did kind of everything that we want from Grimes. I mean, particularly, right? I mean, the 3-point shooting is obviously the first thing that stands out. As they noted on the broadcast, he has been an absurdly good 3-point shooter in the G League, and he's been a very poor one in the NBA, shooting under 30% for the year, maybe above it after this game. But it started just with his activity level, where he is one of the few guys who actually cuts when Isaiah Hartenstein is in the game. And I feel like Isaiah Hartenstein gets kind of a big smile on his face every time he sees he's checking in with Deuce, because he went backdoor, and I Hart hit him. And then he hit Randle cutting to the basket for a layup. And then I Hart hit him again for a cross court 3-pointer. Then he had that insane, vicious flying transition block on Anthony Simons, hit 2 more threes back to back. One of my favorite plays of the game was when he stripped Nasir Little off an offensive rebound, and it led to an Immanuel Quickley 3 on the other end. And I think that put the Knicks up something like 89 to 78. And that was sort of the moment where you were like, all right, the Knicks are about to run away with this. And Alex, I think that play, to me at least, kind of summed up what you were talking about, where it felt like even when Portland did things well, like the Knicks were just sort of in their head the whole game with their activity level. And I hesitate to say that the Knicks, quote unquote, wanted it more, because I mean, while the Knicks cards were doing scrappy things, Damian Lillard was out there just raining fire on their heads. But it was plays like that. I mean, he had another strip on Nurkic later on in the fourth quarter that led to a run out and a 3. So it was just over and over and over again. They were making these hustle aggressive plays. But I'm curious about what you think concerning that dynamic between him and Grimes, and maybe if Grimes doesn't get it together and Deuce keeps shooting really well, that's the guy he could take some minutes from.
Sure. And I think we've already seen that sort of happening with Hart too, right? Like Hart obviously ate into Grimes' minutes first and foremost, and maybe RJ a little bit. But I feel like this game was sort of a sweet spot for RJ as far as like playing time goes. He seemed really comfortable, and he was able to come in at opportune times and sub out at opportune times and all that, and played still 28 minutes. I mean, that's a perfectly acceptable amount of minutes for a starter, contrary to what Tibbs might want to tell you. But then I think I'm with you. Like, I think that with Grimes, it's like, I don't know, something's off with him lately, and it's seeping into all aspects of his game. I don't know if maybe it's just fatigue, or if he's just in a rut, what the case may be, but the shot has not been falling as much. He hasn't seemed as like aggressive on offense these last few games. And I even noted it in the last game, like, he was attacking closeouts well, but even just the timing seems off for him right now. It's just kind of bizarre.
Yeah, just a quick interjection.
Yeah.
I thought Benji summed that up really well, where he's driving to pass and he's not driving to shoot, and it's like every single time, and you got to make an honest effort to score, because if not, defenses won't respect that.
Yeah, and I think we saw the opposite of that with Deuce in this game, where I thought that he was attacking the score, and then we saw that open things for him with passing. Like you referenced that one cut that he made where Hartenstein found him and he was under the hoop, and like he could have just gone up for a shot, and you could tell the defense was expecting that. And yet he just like patiently waited there. And then Julius Randle shook free, and Deuce was able to just kind of like snake it between the couple defenders that were attempting to like swarm him and hit Randle for a super easy layup. So yeah, he's sort of doing all the things that you would like. If he starts hitting the threes, then he's absolutely doing all the things that you would want Quentin Grimes to do, ideally. Now, super ideal world, they both are doing it, and you can just split their minutes, in maybe a 2/3, 1/3 arrangement where Grimes is getting 2/3 of those minutes. But maybe it's a good idea to sort of treat those two as like two sides of a coin, and maybe play one a little more than the other some nights, and vice versa, just to kind of make sure that you can like bottle up whoever is the hot one that night and ride them to, a good performance. So I guess we'll see how that goes going forward. But Gavin, we still have to get into Immanuel Quickley and Julius Randle and RJ Barrett and Obi Toppin and Josh Hart and like pretty much everyone that touches the floor for the Knicks, because this was a fantastic game. But I do just have to let everybody know real quick that I'm really excited by our new partner and sponsor of today's episode, the mobile game Ultimate Pro Basketball GM. Have you ever at home or in your car or walking to work or whatever, or just walking around, have you ever dreamed of becoming an NBA GM and managing your basketball franchise? Well, your dream can come true, and this game is definitely for you. Manage every strategic aspect of your team, play through the season, and lead your team to glory. You're responsible for hiring the right coaches and assistants, trading and training players, making draft picks, navigating your franchise through free agency and the draft, and all the ups and downs of a season. And all this is in a challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Pro Basketball GM is completely free and playable offline. Play on the go as you want and when you want to. And yeah, I really like this game. It's fun. We've been competing in our own little Locked On NBA group, trying to see who can win the most championships. I am not in the lead at the moment, but I will be by the end. Trust me, I will be, because I get really obsessed with these sort of games. There was a text-based game on like internet-based game that I got hooked on, very similar to this a while ago. This is like a more full-featured version. And the best part is, even though you have the options to purchase things in the game, it's definitely not pay to win. And I really like that about the game. So Locked On Knicks listeners can get a 100% free boost to their franchise when you use the promo code Locked On in the game store. So make sure to check it out. To download the game, just visit probasketballgm.com, scan the code, or look it up on your favorite app store. That's right, probasketballgm.com. Ultimate Basketball GM. Start your dynasty today. And we're back, and maybe the Knicks are, maybe Leon Rose is starting his own dynasty today. I don't know. I don't know for sure. Maybe it might be a little presumptuous, Gavin, but when you have a guy like Immanuel Quickley that is playing as well as he is in starts, in this game, 26 points, 10 boards, 3 assists, and he was cooking. 8 of 14 shooting overall, 4 of 8 from 3, and 6 of 7 from the free throw line. That's a pretty good place to be as a franchise. And Quick, he had those couple games after the Boston game where things were not quite perfectly working for him, and I think that it's safe to say that he's back on track now.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It reminded me of the first time he went to Portland in his career. If we want to look back on that, it was January 24. Oh, go ahead.
It actually, isn't it funny how routine the 26 points feels now? When that other game, didn't he score? Wasn't it also like 26?
He had 31 in 24 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty crazy how now it feels like pretty routine for him to just go out there and drop 26 and have a fantastic impact on a game.
Didn't really feel like a big deal. And that game, it took him hitting. Oh, he made 4 threes tonight. It was actually pretty similar stat lines, the two games, but he was a little bit more efficient this one. 8 for 14 instead of 9 for 18 like he was that night. And I looked it up last year. He had a very forgettable game in Portland. Only played 11 minutes. Shot 1 for 6. Had 4 points, and it's crazy to think about. I mean, even earlier this year, there were moments like that, but a little right around a year ago, there were games where Quickley basically would get what the Deuce treatment is on most nights and wouldn't really play a whole lot. And now he is about as essential of a player as this team has. It brings a smile to my face, Alex. But what stood out to me in this one from Quickley is just his ability to find open space in the mid-range. And at times when we talk about his ability to generate space, we just talk about his speed. I know when we had Arya Chawla and we were talking about some of the biomechanics of it, it was his ability to just kind of to bend the corner almost like a great defensive end on drives where he gets almost parallel to the ground and defenders just aren't quite as flexible as he is. But tonight what stood out to me was just his ability to dribble horizontally and also kind of arrhythmically and use these off-pace dribbles. Like there was one shot, it was a left wing elbow jumper that really flashed to me just how he got there, because he was basically going across the lane, and the defense was like, all right, do we have to be worried about him? Do we have to be worried about him? And he took one extra dribble, and it was a dribble that almost implied that he was going to pick up the ball and pass it to the corner, and then everyone just sort of cleared out, and then he just turned and hit the elbow jump shot. And I mean, it's easy to see that as a one-off and be like, oh, that was a fluky play. The defense didn't really adjust to it. But I think the more I watch him now, I realize just how conscious he is about doing that and getting to certain spots. And it just feels like he's almost a puppeteer at times with opposing defenses. And you combine that with all of his natural gifts, the shot making, the speed. I mean, you're looking at someone who could eventually be a starter and a 20+ point per game scorer in the NBA. There's that. And there's the fact that, as we've noted a whole bunch of times this year, he just, like, every three he makes just tends to feel monumental. Maybe that's the energy he brings to it, the way he celebrates them. But he had the one where he just curled around Josh Hart to tie it at 68. He had the previous one that I mentioned, which was like a wing three after Deuce got a steal. And they got the Knicks to a 83-78 lead, which at the time was the biggest lead of the game. 14 points in that third quarter, Alex. As great as Deuce was, I think Quickley was probably the Knicks MVP in this one. It's pretty close between those two guys.
Yeah, I mean, they were almost doing like the exact same type of stuff in some ways, but Quickley just has that creation. I mean, the difference maker between him and Deuce right now is just his ability to just break guys down, so easily. Like Deuce is still a little reliant on those cuts and like having other guys kind of create the opportunities for him in many ways because the handle just isn't quite tight enough yet and all that stuff. Whereas Quickley, it's just he displayed it so many times in this game, throwing guys in your favorite booty jail, just getting them, on his hip and driving in, patiently waiting for the right opportunity to come up. Had like one of the moments that stood out to me for Quickley actually wasn't even a three, although all those were, as you noted, like amazing, but just again, like perfecting his pull-up mid-range game. It seems like every game he's getting more and more comfortable with that shot, which that was one that, thanks to his sort of elongated load up for his three-point shot, seemed to take a little longer for him to learn how to like shoot off the dribble like that and sort of like compress his or not compress, but more like make his off the dribble shot a little more flowy than his three-point shot. And he's gotten so good at that. Like he had this really nice baseline sort of falling away jumper at one point in this game that came at, if I remember, at another pretty key point, like in the second quarter when the Knicks were sort of making their run and, making this game close going into halftime so that then they could blow it out of the water in the third quarter. So yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I think he had as great an impact as anyone on this game and probably I mean, it's tough to dispute when he has the highest score on the entire team. Like he probably had the greatest impact overall in this game, even if Deuce, it was more memorable just because of how, I don't want to say unexpected, but how much less expected it was that this would be like Deuce's career high on this particular game. So great game for Immanuel Quickley. We still got to talk about Josh Hart, Julius Randle, RJ Barrett, amongst others who all had great games as well, Gavin. But before we do that, do you want to let everybody know where maybe they could bet on Deuce's over in the next game? Because I think that might not be a bad idea.
Well, you know what, Alex, if you know what the number one sports book in America is, why would you go anywhere else? And that is, of course, FanDuel, and it just passed the midway point of the NBA season, so it's the perfect time to download FanDuel because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. It's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to points scored and threes drained. And we have yet another argument in favor of Immanuel Quickley winning Sixth Man of the Year. I know the odds aren't what they once were, but I don't know. I still might throw some money down. I mean, the only argument against him is that he's turning into just a pretty good starter at this point. On top of that, you might even want to throw some money down on Immanuel Quickley for most improved. He got a shout out on the low post for that recently. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same game parlay. So you don't miss the chance and get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/locked-on. That is FanDuel.com/locked-on to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. And with that, we are back on Locked On Knicks. We gotta shout out RJ Barrett, who's been on a pretty good run of late. But Alex, in all these games, I've had nits to pick, right? I've slipped in a little critique here, a little critique there, much to the chagrin of one of our YouTube commenters in particular. But I'm sure a couple more people listening who are a little bit less vocal in the comment section. But tonight, I really had no issues with this game from RJ Barrett. The only thing is, like, he didn't get an assist, but it wasn't for lack of trying. He played totally unselfishly. He consistently took advantage of, I think, a really ideal matchup against Portland, particularly. I don't know. I don't think Jeremy Grant would have guarded him, as Jeremy Grant probably would have been on Randle, but no Jeremy Grant. Just not a lot of length for Portland out there. It was Trenton Watford and at times Matisse Thybulle trying to slow RJ down. But whenever he got a mismatch, whenever he got Anthony Simons on him, he was very quick to go at it. But what I love from RJ in this game was his ability to show restraint. At one point, he got Dame on him and he tried to back him down, back him down. Dame is a pretty strong and sturdy guy. And RJ was like, all right, I didn't get anywhere here. I thought I would. But I'm going to take advantage that you have some help defenders thinking that I'm going to get somewhere leaning towards me. And he whipped a pass into the corner to Immanuel Quickley. Immanuel Quickley missed the three, but that is not the point. The point is that RJ made the simple, correct play, and that is all I ever want from the guy. Also had 3 blocks in this game, got it done defensively. I like just from a physical perspective, the way he bullied Thybulle, who whatever concerns you have about his offense, even though he's pretty good in that category tonight, is a great defender, and RJ at times just went right through him.
Yeah, and Thybulle is sort of the ideal defender to potentially shut RJ down too, because he's lengthy. For a guy who's like nominally a wing, dating all the way back to college, he's a phenomenal shot blocker. And just a guy that has great defensive timing, like across the board. Who also has weirdly decided that he knows how to shoot now. I don't know what's up with that. They were talking about his numbers since he got to Portland. He's shooting like 50% from 3 since he got there. I'm like, dude, what the heck happened there? Because the guy couldn't hit anything like a month ago. But at any rate, like, yeah, I thought that it just underscored how good RJ is getting and what a zone he's getting into lately, as far as being able to use his strength to create space and use that to not just get good attempts at the rim, but actually finish them, which is of course the operative thing that you have to do. Like, generating the opportunity is one thing, but finishing is what makes you great. And he's starting to do that now with better results than he has at certain points during this season. Also got 7 free throw attempts for his trouble, which is always good to see as well. I love seeing RJ get to the line. That was something that he was phenomenal at to end last year. We noted that he was like top 5 in the NBA, I think, after the All-Star break last year at getting to the free throw line. So if he can continue doing that heading into the playoffs, that's a valuable thing to have, to be able to just know that you could beat your defender, you can get all the way to the hoop, and hopefully you could finish it, but at least you could generate free throws and shoot somewhat decently on them. He shot 5 of 7 in this game. But defensively too, I thought that he really showed out. Like, he seems to really lately have kind of a fire under his butt, which is good, like, because he definitely needed that for a little bit. And lately I think he's been just giving consistent effort across the board. I think the process has been good in most games, even if the results haven't always been there from an efficiency standpoint. But I've been pretty impressed with him lately. Another guy I was impressed with in this game, fighting through some adversity, was Julius Randle. Actually, he had 3 fouls in the first quarter, which is not great, and then had to have a pretty long stint from the end of the first quarter to almost all the way to the end of the second quarter, where he wasn't able to play. He seemed visibly frustrated at the 3rd foul call, which we just saw recently, where he let ref frustrations get to him, and it arguably cost the Knicks a game the other day against the Clippers. And yet in this one, he took a deep breath. I mean, he definitely talked the entire way down the sideline, getting back to his seat, but then, let it roll off his back and eventually put together a really good game overall. I mean, his entire game, like it was actually split up pretty well because he was doing quite well in the first quarter and then for that little bit before halftime. But 24 points overall for him, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, and he also shot not his best game, 8 of 20, but 0-5 from 3 as well. I mean, there was just but 8 of 10 from the free throw line. I guess all that is to say, Gavin, like I didn't think he played his best game from the foul trouble early, from the not making any threes, all that stuff. But I was impressed with his composure and the fact that he still managed to turn it into a good game. Like he made lemonade out of lemons essentially in this game because things looked like they couldn't have. They were going to go really poorly for him, and then he turned it into a pretty freaking good game.
Yeah, he started off 0 for 5 from the field, 0 for 4 from 3. And I wrote down in my notes that it kind of reminded me of 2 years ago, Randall, where we saw as the season went on, he got a little bit fatigued and he became, I mean, that season as a whole was pretty jump shot reliant, but he turned it up to another level, became even more jump shot reliant. And I remember going on this podcast and talking like, they're going in, but I don't know if I love the idea that he's taking 25-foot step back threes with a guy in his face. And he had a few game stretch, I remember, in that 2021 season where he was making them. And we're like, all right, I guess it works. But ultimately that is not sustainable for him. That's never going to be sustainable for him because he's turned himself into a good 3-point shooter. He's not Damian Lillard, and he's never going to be Damian Lillard. And that's okay because he is a 260-pound, 275-pound tank of a human being, and that is always going to be the strength of his game. And he realized that in real time in this one, which is a credit for a guy who at times in the past, whose self-awareness we've questioned. Like this was an immense amount of self-awareness. He's like, all right, I'm trying to win this way. It's not working. I am going to find the energy to not do that. And immediately went in, got 2 tough finishes at the end of the first quarter, started getting to the foul line, like had a couple of really nice rip through moves. One on, I think, Thibault, one on Watford, one on Dame. He had a gorgeous drive on Trenton Watford where he did my favorite move from Grimes, where he kind of dribbles really fast, stops, and almost implies he's either going to hand the ball off or flip it to someone, and then just speeds by the defender. Did that for a dunk. Had a double pump and one through 2 defenders, had a leading banker. We always talk about just the variety of shot making with Julius Randle, but I like to see that variety around the rim. And as the game went along, we certainly saw that. But Alex, I think it tells you how insanely good this game was for the Knicks that we have gone nearly a half hour into this episode, and we haven't mentioned Josh Hart's name yet because he almost had a triple double, 16 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists. 3 steals in this one. What stood out to you from Hart tonight?
Just the same things that always stand out, right? The hustling, the getting after everything, the just like influencing the game as best as he can. You know what I mean? Like not, I guess being everywhere all at once, right? I guess we're gonna do everything everywhere all at once. He's like an Oscar winner. But the way that he pushes in transition, I feel like I bring this up every single show, but it hasn't stopped amazing me yet in his run with the Knicks so far. Like the fact that every time the ball touches his hands off a rebound, off of a miss from the other team, he's halfway down the court already. By the time the other team even knows what to do, is just so valuable, and it's helped the Knicks so much as a whole to establish their offense and get things going. And it was part of what helped them sort of get out of the rut today. It's like he makes them like rut proof, like they can be not having a good day, not shooting the ball well, whatever, but transition offense can just be like the cure for all ails in that case. He provides that and is super valuable with it. Of course, the rebounding is amazing as well. The steals were great. The 3-point shooting, he shot 2 of 5 in this one, and his threes came at pretty key moments as well. The last one was not at a particularly key moment, but he had one earlier that was sort of helping to bury the Blazers in this game. Definitely a game that made the trade of Reddish for Josh Hart look fantastic by comparison, considering Hart ended up a team high plus 26, and his presence on the court really felt like a team high once again in this game.
Yeah, I what stood out to me was his facilitating in transition, and that just it's kind of amazing for a guy who, I mean, normally when you say guys don't get sped up, you think of star players, because that is kind of in some ways the definition of a star, right? That they have their own gravity, and everything sort of adjusts to them. But Hart, I guess in that sense, is kind of a star player, because in transition, he has such a good timing of, all right, I'm coming down the middle of the floor. Who's filling either lane? When will they be in the optimal spot for me to throw them the basketball? And over and over and over again, he makes the right decision, and he's never rushed in doing so. I mean, one of my favorite passes of his was on one where he didn't even get the assist. He whipped it to Obi in the corner, and then Obi redirected it to Deuce on the wing. He had the other one where this play kind of perfectly epitomized where the trade worked out for Cam, not for Cam, but trading Cam worked out for the Knicks. When I think it was Dame was just telegraphing a pass to Cam, and Hart read it perfectly. And then Hart was just so much more aggressive to the ball than Cam was. Got it. Second defender came over to just kind of trap him, and he just slipped it out right in time to get it to Deuce for the dunk. So just over and over and over again, just the defensive playmaking, which was one of the things, Alex, you and I loved about Cam earlier this year. Josh Hart does it on another level, because he doesn't just get the steal, then he goes out in transition, and not that Cam Reddish is bad at this, but Hart is at another level as both a finisher and a passer. So he was great. Last two guys to shout out real quick. Isaiah Hartenstein, for me, I thought he was the MVP of the Knicks getting back in this game when they turned it from, again, 21-6 to, I think it was 36-33 in pretty quick succession. I already mentioned the pass he had to a cutting Deuce. He had another setup to Deuce for a three, had a baseball pass to Obi that Obi did a great job catching and stepping back on to turn to a three. And I just thought Nurkic's defensive play in this one was, he got called for one kind of crummy foul at a certain point, but was really, really good. Had three big offensive rebounds, finished with 11 boards overall, 4 assists, a steal, a block, was a plus 20 in 27 minutes despite not scoring. And it was another night, and this isn't even a shot at Mitchell Robinson, because I thought he was fine in this game, but it was another night where I thought Hartenstein was pretty clearly the Knicks' best center, and the minutes those guys both played reflected that. Tom Thibodeau agrees with that opinion.
Yeah, and yet another 0-point game for Hartenstein that still felt impactful, which is pretty tough to do in the NBA. Like it's not an easy feat to go out there and put up 0 and then have it still feel like you really, really did something. Yeah, I'll shout out Obi Toppin, who I thought did a really great job, especially when in that first to second quarter stretch when Randle was in foul trouble. He came in and like you needed production out of Obi, and he gave it. Like he hit a couple threes during that stretch. He ends 4 of 6 shooting, 3 of 5 from 3 in not that many minutes. He, I think, only played a total of 14 in this game and had 11 points overall. I mean, I thought that he just did the scoring that the Knicks needed. And, just giving his little Obi Toppin spin to the power forward position that he always does. But the shot making is what's always super important for him. And then, yeah, I'll just give Mitch, like, honestly, I was really surprised to see Mitch not play as much, although Hartenstein did play really well. So I guess it's just kind of like, well, you can't play both of them. But Mitch, it was sort of interesting. I guess one little wrinkle that I thought was kind of cool was that it seemed like the Knicks had him shading out to the perimeter a lot more than usual in this game, especially early on. Like he was sticking to the perimeter more to keep an eye on Dame or Simons on screens. And then it was leading to these like kind of funny mismatches of Nurkic having like Quickley on him or whatever fairly often. But then Mitch was recovering really quick to negate that and getting back down to defend his man. So kudos to him. I don't think the box score, like people would look at this box score and be like, oh, Mitch probably had a terrible game, but I don't think he did. I think he had a totally fine effort, and it was just circumstances just kept him out of this one. But I thought that there was some interesting wrinkles for him, and I thought he all in all had a pretty good game too.
Yeah, I'm with you. The one play where he tracked Dame out to the baseline and blocked his shot. That was there was something reawakened in my heart. I was like, oh yeah, Mr. Robinson can do that, and I hope I would love for him in the playoffs, like whether it's a redux of James Harden or maybe, I mean, glory be to the basketball gods on Donovan Mitchell. I want him in a key moment, switch that on a guard. I want him sending that deuce out of bounds or up the court, and Josh Hart flying and getting a dunk. Like I always want to see more of that from Mitch. So that was great. But that'll wrap up this edition of the Locked On Knicks podcast. For Alex, I am Gavin, and we will be back with 2 more mailbag episodes for you guys, and then a fresh game recap over the weekend. It's a long layoff for the Knicks. They don't play again till Saturday, but we will have you covered with plenty of fun stuff. In the meantime, until then, be good. Talk to you soon.